Siyo from the Res. Our guest today is Cherokee Nation's ethnobiology manager.
Don't worry, we'll explain what ethnobiology is here in a bit.
She oversees the Cherokee Nation Seed Bank and the Cherokee Nation Heirloom Garden and Native Plant Site. She is in charge of a wildly popular program. As many of our listeners probably know, if you've ever tried to apply for seeds from our seed bank.
Yeah, you see people on social media talking about the seed bank like they're trying to get tickets to a Beyonce concert. There's hype and there's so much demand. But seriously though, today's conversation is going to give you an inside look at why our seed bank and heirloom garden are so beloved, and you'll get to meet the person who makes it all happen.
Welcome to the pod, Feather Smith.
How are you doing today, Feather?
I'm good, thank you. Siyo.
For the folks out there who don't get to work with you on a regular basis like our department does, just start off with who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your background, how you became the Feather Smith.
Well, Siyo, I am Feather Smith. I live in Tahlequah. I'm from Tahlequah. I have a degree in fish and wildlife biology from Northeastern State University, and I was a former Miss Cherokee 2008 and 2009. And the reason I bring that up is that was actually sort of what kicked off the conversation with me even learning about the position when it opened up in 2014-15. One of the ladies that I worked with quite a bit as Miss Cherokee actually reached out to me and said, hey, you need to contact Pat Gwynn, who was the man that was really instrumental in getting this entire thing started. He got the garden started, got the program started, and I did not know him at the time. And so she had said, we'd really like for you to reach out to Pat and talk to him because they have this position opening up and it's kind of in the field that you're in. I know it's a little bit different, but whoever gets this position will be working with the Cherokee Nation medicine keepers quite a bit. And, we would love to have you actually look into the position. And so I had reached out to Pat and we started talking. And in January of 2015, I came on at the time as the cultural biologist.
I see you a lot on social media, and I always see you outside doing really cool things and just traveling and being outdoors. Did that play a part in you getting a degree in fish and wildlife and ethnobiology?
Oh, definitely. I always knew I wanted to do something that was really going to allow me to be outside a lot. I love the outdoors. We grew up, my parents used to take us hiking and camping, and we had horses, so there was a lot of horseback riding, and the whole family really has a love for the outdoors. So I knew I wanted to do something kind of more in the field, and I really, really loved animals growing up. It was a common joke in the neighborhood I lived in that everybody called me Ellie Mae from the Beverly Hillbillies because I loved animals so much. And so that was why I had gone into fish and wildlife biology with really more of the intention of studying wildlife, conservation, preservation, and somehow wound up working with plants. I would have never guessed that this is where I would have wound up, but I really loved it.
There are a lot of programs and services here at Cherokee Nation, but some of the ones that you oversee are some of our most popular. The Seed Bank and Heirloom Garden, they're so beloved. Cherokees here on the Res and at large talk about the Seed Bank all year long. It's like a highly anticipated drop. It's almost like Black Friday when it does drop. How does it feel to be head of such a program like that?
All I can really say is it's really been an honor. It's a lot of fun to work with this program. When I started out 10 years ago, we were still kind of small. We did not have an online website. We didn't do anything online. All of our contacts were by email or phone, and we would have the seed bank open for about 2 months. And during that time, we're maybe giving away 4,000, 5,000 packages of seed. So to have seen the way that this program has grown in that time, to see how popular it is now, all of the interest in it, it's really been rewarding to be involved with this for as long as I have.
That's very cool. For people who are listening and haven't seen the Heirloom Garden and Native Plant Site here in Tahlequah, can you kind of describe it for them?
So the Cherokee Nation Heirloom Garden and Native Plant Site is really about a 3-acre spot that sits just east of the primary Cherokee Nation complex here in Tahlequah. So I think that's kind of the first misconception. A lot of people really assume that we're growing on just like fields and fields and fields growing these crops, and that is not the case at all. Like I said, maybe the whole site might be 3 acres. And in that spot, we've actually only got We have about a 60 by 60 space where we grow most of our heirloom crops, and the rest of that site is mostly dedicated to the preservation of Cherokee native plants that are native to either this region or we have a few things that were actually native back east, back from the Carolina region that were brought here that we kind of forced to grow in that area. So there's a lot of diversity out there, well over 100 different plants. And in just the last couple of years, the OSU 4-H Extension for Cherokee County actually had a garden that sat right alongside ours, and it had some raised beds, and it really wound up being kind of too far away from their offices. So they moved out of that spot, and they left everything that was there to us. So we acquired a new building, and we acquired those raised beds. So we have been able to increase the space that we're growing heirloom crops at now because the raised beds definitely cover probably a little bit more space than what we had before. So we've easily doubled, if not tripled, on top of where we're growing our heirloom crops. If you're looking at an aerial view of the Cherokee Nation Heirloom Garden and Native Plant Site, you'll see that many of our beds are outlined in rocks. One of the things that we kind of really wanted to do out there was start putting a lot of our beds in culturally relevant shapes. So we've got everything from arrowheads to triskells. We have a water spider, and then we've also got some things that you really wouldn't have seen in more traditional artwork, like water turtle, and then also a butterfly. So we've just kind of tried to incorporate some different symbolism. So when you come out to the site, you don't just learn about the plants, you learn about some culture and our symbology as well and artwork.
Do you have a favorite plant to grow, or you just like having it around?
For me, this one has a tendency to change year to year. And, like when I first started, I would have easily said river cane just because of how instrumental it is and so many things that we use. And I'm a basket weaver, so, river cane's really important for that. But the longer I've been with the site, I'm getting to the point where I really love tobacco because tobacco is a little bit of a challenge to grow. And so every year that it's successful and it does well, I think it's just so rewarding. I focus a lot of my time and attention and energy on that. So I think at this point, it's probably the tobacco.
When I first started, I didn't have any idea the level of development that we had gone into with the seed bank and with the heirloom garden. And honestly, I'd been an earth science major for a short period in college. And when they said seed bank, I thought it was like maybe stuffed in the back of some mountain in Tahlequah, which is a good transition to I've heard we have a contribution to Svalbard. How did that come about, and what's that like knowing that we have Cherokee seeds in something as important as Svalbard?
A conversation about Svalbard was actually what kicked off the entire program way back in the early 2000s. There was a Cherokee citizen who really thought that the Cherokee Nation should be represented in Svalbard Global Seed Vault, which is in Norway, because we're a sovereign nation. And so there was conversations about having the Cherokee purple tomato represented in Svalbard. There were some people who already suspected but went ahead and did some research, and what they confirmed is that the Cherokee purple tomato is mostly Cherokee in name only. It was not something that was cultivated by the Cherokee tribe as a whole. And so they brought that information back, and so then everybody sat down and said, okay, but, we're an agricultural tribe. We have seeds. So what about having one of our other seeds, something else represented? And when they really got to looking around, and again, Pat Gwynn was very instrumental in this, got to finding that he was having a very, very tough time finding Cherokee seeds here on the reservation. So it kind of became almost the mission at that point was just to track the seeds down and bring them back here to the reservation. And so he worked a lot with the Eastern Band and some different educational institutions and some different groups and experts around the country until eventually we had, about 9-10 crops, and then had a few other things that we could add in with that. And what we kind of got to realizing then was that nobody was growing any of these crops for genetic preservation. We had a lot of hobbyists growing them, which is very, very important for the preservation of crops. But if nobody's growing the crops for the purpose of making sure that the genetics are staying at their top, they're pure, they look good, even just things as simple as the corn consistently looking like it's supposed to look, because corn can change really easy over a couple of generations. they were all kind of at risk of being lost. And so they started growing here at the complex at that point just for the purpose of kind of getting a good genetic stock, a good genetic quality of seeds back to kind of what they needed to look like. And after a few generations of doing that, and I say a few, it's probably really only a couple of years, what Pat really got to quickly realizing is that we had all of these buckets and buckets of excess seed, and we really only needed a fairly small amount for our genetic stock versus everything that we were winding up with. And so that's what the seed bank was born out of. But the whole idea was really just genetic preservation of the crops. And so all of those years, they got so focused on making sure that we were genetically preserving our crops. They were growing the way they were supposed to be growing. And then we started the seed bank and started giving back out to our citizens, that the idea of Svalbard had kind of gotten pushed to the back and everybody had sort of somewhat forgot about it. Pat, of course, always remembered that that was sort of the origin story. So when we would have the question asked on how this started off, he would talk about it. And in 2018 or 19, he did an article with NPR and talked about that story. Somebody at Svalbard got a hold of the story, and so then they actually reached out to us at the end of 2019 and said, we would love to have the Cherokee Nation represented if this is something you guys are still willing to do. And so the current Secretary of Natural Resources at the time, Sarah Hill, and Pat and a few other people all kind of got together, and they had the discussions on, is this still something that we're able to and willing to do? They discussed it pretty heavily, went back to Svalbard, kind of asked what the requirements were. Almost immediately, we kind of got to figuring out this may not work out, because they said that they would basically need, it was almost like 5 gallons of seed, of each variety of seed that we were going to send to them. And, we're kind of a small seed bank. It's very rare that we have that many seeds all at once. And so that was going to decimate the seed bank giveaway for possibly about 2 years. And so we kind of reached back out and said, why is this? And, of course, Svalbard is a scientific institution. So part of what they do on top of storing seeds is that they actually do some genetic research with the DNA that is brought into their vault. And so that is very sort of a taboo thing to do to Cherokee seeds. Our seeds are sacred. They belong to us. And for anybody, especially a non-Cherokee, to mess with anything DNA-wise on those seeds just really wasn't something that we could allow. And so they had to go back and sort of, regretfully decline. And they reached back out and, asked why. And so we explained the cultural reasons behind that. And so Svalbard talked about this for a little while, and then they reached back out and said, what if we just store the seeds for you at the seed vault? And after discussing it some more, we said, yeah, we can do that. And that meant sending a much, much smaller amount of seeds, really only about a quart-sized bag over of each seed variety. Our thinking was really, we keep 2 stocks of seeds, or we kept 2 stocks of seeds prior to this. And so we had our primary stock that we grow from each year, a backup stock should anything happen, that we would have this backup stock. And then this allowed us to have it stored in a third place where if something were to ever happen here in Tahlequah, at least we had this backup stock of seeds. Pat had sort of one other caveat before he would send the seeds over, and it's that they were labeled in Cherokee first, which wasn't something that Svalbard had ever ran into. They had their usual way, their usual language and way of labeling things, and we required that everything was labeled in Cherokee syllabary with their true names before anything else. They quickly agreed to that, and we were able to get them over there. So we have pictures of the seeds actually being placed into the vault, and you can see the Cherokee seal, you can see the flag on the side of the vault, along with that syllabary. And we were, of course, the first Native American tribe to be represented at the vault. So it was exciting, and it's also nice to know that we have that extra set out in the vault. And I think at some point we will have to rotate those out, and we'll probably come up on that in a few years, where we'll rotate the seeds out just to, again, be able to ensure that they're going to maintain integrity over a period of time.
I honestly did not know that. I did not know how the seed bank actually started. What are some common misconceptions about some of our seeds or plants?
Oftentimes people expect heirloom crops, because they are known for being hardier, to always be easy to grow. And kind of the thing about our seeds is, of course, they were cultivated for the Southeast. They have some troubles being grown in other areas, especially in an area like Oklahoma where it tends to be so hot. It's actually been really great for our corn. Most of the time, corn seems to really like growing here in Oklahoma, and it actually tends to get a little bit taller here than it does in the Southeast. Most of our corn's known to get up to about 8-10 feet tall, but here it can sometimes reach heights of 15 feet tall. The beans, however, don't like Oklahoma heat so much. Once we get up above 93 degrees, beans don't want to do anything, and so that's even going to be true anywhere else you're growing in the country. Once they get above 93 degrees, they just stop pollinating. So a lot of times we get a fall crop on beans. We actually don't get a spring crop because it just gets too hot here too fast. Pumpkins have been wonderfully easy to grow, and I'm always they've kind of become a favorite of the heirloom crops for me because you could just get so much bangs for your buck. So for one pumpkin plant, I probably get 3 times the amount of fruit or pumpkins on those than I get for something like the Georgia candy roaster squash. And for one pumpkin, we easily get 3 to 4 times the amount of seed than you would get off of one Georgia candy roaster squash fruit. The Georgia candy roaster squash is our most popular seed every single year. It is our most requested anytime that we have it available. It's also one of our most challenging to grow. Does not like heat, and all of the pests love it, which means that when you combine pest issues with heat, it doesn't love Oklahoma heat so much. And so for it to be our most popular, it is very hard for us to get enough seeds to always fill the requests that we get on Georgia candy roaster squash.
If people are disappointed they didn't get seeds in one go-around, there's people out there literally putting in work to get those seeds and to get as many seeds as possible. And sometimes the elements are not at your favor.
It all depends on how a year goes, how a growing season goes. It can be a struggle to keep up with things. If we happen to have a hard year, sometimes that means that we're just not going to quite have as many seeds. And so we definitely ran into, last year was a bit of a struggle, and I did not think that we were going to make the seed count that we had previous years. But we did somehow. I think our native plants sometimes save us. And this year, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen yet. The weather has been interesting here in Oklahoma. It's been really, really wet and kind of cool. And so it's resulting in a lot of stunted growth on our plants.
I always feel like we're emailing you, trying to get help with social media and identifying traditional plants. What's it like being the go-to person for almost the whole nation on traditional plants and seeds, and do people just bug you all day?
Actually, it's almost a little surreal at times. I never really expected to work with plants, and so now kind of being the go-to person that everybody, ask about on plants, I still always feel like I'm always shocked that I'm the person. Mm-hmm. And I guess I really have. I've learned a lot in the time I've been here, but when I started in this position 10 years ago, I knew almost nothing about plants, and I knew almost nothing about gardening. Again, when I first started working with Pat, and I have the utmost respect for the man, but one of the things that Pat really, really loved to tell everybody about me is she's really smart, but she knows nothing. And then he also liked to tell everybody we're slowly taking her black thumb and trying to turn it green. Sometimes being kind of considered the go-to is amazing, and I'm always still learning. This is a field that you're never going to know everything of, and so I'm always learning. I don't get bugged all day, but I definitely have certain times of the year where I have different people reaching out, asking me about native plants, where to find things, the identification of plants. And sometimes I'm still, even when somebody will send me a picture, I kind of look it up to ensure that what I'm thinking is right. And I think that was also something that was really rewarding for me when I started getting to the point where I could just go out into the field and look at a plant, and I didn't just see green anymore. I could actually identify what I was looking at. It made hiking a lot more entertaining.
I bet. That's really cool. So whenever you're out, just you not working and you go hiking, are you looking at plants and being like, oh, that's this, and that's
it? I've definitely gotten to the point, spring hikes are some of my favorites now because that's when the most plants are out. And so I'm always kind of looking around to see what I can find. And I have gotten to a point where I rate hiking trails now on their plant biodiversity that they have in an area versus just how good the hike was.
That's so cool because I was at the creek on Sunday, and I seen all these little plants, just hanging out by the creek, and I'm wondering, is that poison ivy? Is that not? I don't know. So what poison ivy is.
Oh, definitely.
Do you see it? So I need you to teach me what that is because I really don't want to get into that. So
we can show you, actually, if you ever just want to come out to the garden, we have poison ivy out there, and I am also very allergic. We have poison ivy out there, and we have jewelweed, which will help you if you actually run into poison ivy with getting the urushiol oil off. So we've got both of them right there together.
Hey, that's such a cool thing to know.
Yes, and I have personally gotten into poison ivy at the site and then gone and used one of our jewelweed plants to remedy that issue. And so, kind of one of the tricks is you have to know you got into poison ivy to be able to use the jewelweed. But I have definitely prevented some rashes a few times that way.
Practicality is awesome. And you were talking about how the knowledge of plants has affected your hiking. And I know that all the locations are pretty low-key and not public, but has your hiking allowed you to discover, maybe some areas for more plants that you were able to use, or, maybe a crop of things that you didn't know grew in a certain area?
Occasionally. I've been in some places where, I was shocked to run into a plant that I didn't expect, or sometimes, things that you don't see as often. I'm shocked to find them along, super popular trails where hundreds of people are coming through constantly. I was shocked at some of the plants that I could find down through there. So things that are really, oftentimes we have to go out into the field and, really search for being right there alongside the trail. Not that we were going in and using them, but just being able to go and see, oh, yeah, this is here. And, if somebody's asking, I want to be able to go out into the field and see this so that way I can remember how to identify it if I do run into it, then I can tell them, oh, yeah, if you go along this trail, you hit this spot, they're everywhere. You can't look, you can't miss one. So really, really easy spot to just be able to go look and see and identify.
Yeah, without having to go search and risk all the poison ivy.
Yeah. But without having to go off, not on a trail through, acres and acres of Cherokee tribal properties. Yeah.
So a little shifting gears a little bit from your work. Whenever you're not hiking or doing anything with plants or crops, what are you doing? What's something that you like to do?
Well, first off, I've got 3 pets. I've got 2 dogs and a cat, and so obviously I spend a lot of time at home with the animals, and I love taking the dogs for walks and things like that. I am also a basket weaver. I make moccasins. I love to do photography, beadwork. All of those things kind of get married sometimes, and I tend to do a lot of my outdoor stuff or working with the pets, and they have a lot of pictures taken of them. So if you follow me on social media, it's primarily my animals.
No, I love those. Whenever I do follow you on Facebook, and I always see your little animals, I just love them. The pictures are so great.
Thank you. I love, not in any way a professional photographer anywhere near that, but I love taking pictures, and my poor pets get dragged into that a lot.
And what kind of dogs do you have?
I have a Rottweiler and a French Bulldog. So my Frenchie just turned 7, and my Rottweiler girl, she'll be 2 in October. And about as much fun and chaos as you can imagine.
I love that. I have a pug, and I have a Cane Corso. So we have the little and the big, and you have the same thing, yes. Little and a big, and it's great. It's a great combination.
It really is, and they're kind of almost similar, and even the breed types, because I love to watch, see the pictures of your Cane and your pug, and they're a lot of fun. You just got to watch, my big Rottweiler, who's still very much a puppy, she sometimes forgets how big she is because she's so used to being around everybody else that's so small, so I have to watch her size, but she's pretty good.
So you're really the face of the seed bank and heirloom garden, and that's what people know you for. Some people might have forgotten that you were actually Miss Cherokee, as you mentioned before. Can you kind of talk about that experience and maybe some of your favorite memories?
So I was Miss Cherokee 2008, 2009, and I was actually Junior Miss Cherokee 2007, 2008. So wow. I did those 2 years. Back to back, exactly. I went from my senior year in high school to my freshman year in college with the titles. And, it was a lot of work. It was very rewarding. I absolutely recommend to anybody who has ever considered and kind of wondered if they could possibly, try for the title, for the position. Definitely go out for it. It is so rewarding, even just to go through the competition itself. You'll make a lot of friendships. It really teaches you some lessons, and I think oftentimes as young people we kind of hear that and go, what? But I don't think people always realize just how introverted I am. I'm an incredibly introverted person. I tend to be very quiet, and I had a really, really tough time with public speaking when I was younger. And so fortunately, my mother really, I'm very similar to her, so she kind of pushed me a lot and encouraged me to do a lot of these other things. And those couple of years really kind of set me up for the course my life has taken since then. Also, just getting to represent the tribe, getting to represent my community throughout that time was incredibly, incredibly rewarding. Getting to work with different kids, going all over the country, representing Cherokee culture. I was also a tour guide at the time. I worked at the Cherokee Heritage Center. And so I was always working with people kind of spreading Cherokee culture and awareness and talking about history and language and just some of the best memories. One of the things that I just really loved was working with the kids and the youth. Oftentimes I remember the Miss Cherokees I got to be around as a kid, which kind of really encouraged me to want to be a Miss Cherokee as I got older. And so I remember some of those kids during that time, we would go out and I would randomly have a child come up and give me a hug and sort of take off. And we would have people come up and they would just be so excited to get to meet me. And I know in some of those cases, those experiences influenced them as they got older. Madison Whitekiller, who was also a former Miss Cherokee, she was a little Miss Cherokee whenever I was giving up my Miss Cherokee crown. And her mother often told me it was after she met me as Miss Cherokee that she'd gone back and was like, she really wanted to try for Little Miss Cherokee. She wound up getting it that year. I was there at the competition the day that she was titled, and so getting to watch her go through, as a Little Miss Cherokee a couple of times, a Junior Miss Cherokee, a Miss Cherokee, kind of following those same steps, was really, really exciting to get to watch and to kind of know that I had that influence in that. It's just such a rewarding experience, and I don't even know if I can always kind of put into words just sort of what those 2 years meant. It was a lot of fun.
I love that. Did it ever take you to any places, like really cool places?
So we did get to go out. I got to go to a few of the CCO, the Cherokee Cultural Community picnics. So I did get to go out into California. Actually got to go while we were there for the picnics. They let us one afternoon go see the sequoia trees, which I had always wanted to see. And it's the only time I've gotten to make it out there to see them, which was awesome. I still plan on one of these days going back and really getting to hike. It's so, so exciting to get to go see. There's so many things in California to go do. And then also getting to work with different people while we were out there, friendships, kind of people I met while I was there. Then I run into these people now, and they've kind of really fostered some friendship over the years just from getting to do that traveling. And then, of course, we also went out and visited Cherokee, North Carolina. I was there for the Cherokee Fair that year. I got to spend the week traveling with their Miss Cherokee at the time and their Junior Miss Cherokee, and then also the Miss Katua at the time, and I think maybe Miss Choctaw. And so we kind of had this group, and we got to kind of travel all over Cherokee and see everything, working with our council, their council. So that was a lot of fun. I kind of got to be around both communities. We all sort of just kind of got to hang out too and kind of pal around while also going through the museums, and that was also really, really cool. Kind of fostered friendships for the rest of my life with people I otherwise wouldn't have known. And then Red Clay is a really special site. It's one of those things that when you get to be there and you have so many Cherokees from the Cherokee Nation represented and the Eastern Band of Cherokees represented. Then I was also doing things like storytelling and stuff like that on top of that. But I just met so many people during that time through all of these travels that I still talk with a lot of those people today. We definitely follow each other on social media, but it's definitely made some friendships that have lasted all of this time. That whole year really kind of set me up for the course of the rest of my life, and I didn't even realize just how much at the time it did. I didn't realize how much the influence from just traveling throughout that year kind of helped me out with the public speaking. It helped me through school. It helped me through this. But then also, I was fostering a lot of relationships with the Eastern Band of Cherokees, of people that I still talk with and I'm around today.
We've heard a little bit about your parents, and they also worked for Cherokee Nation. What is it like to go back and serve your tribe and work for a place that's kind of like a family legacy almost?
I had worked with the Cherokee Heritage Center. I'd worked with Cherokee Nation through the Cherokee Heritage Center before I came on into this position. So there was a legacy out there. My grandmother, Betty Smith, was one of the first people to work at the Heritage Center when the village was built back in the late 60s. She took almost all 11 of her children out there and kind of raised them out there while she was working. Then later on, as her kids start growing up, including my dad, they all started working there as well. And when I was a child, Dad had worked in some different places over the years and then had gone back to the Heritage Center when I was about 11. And so me still being young, I would go spend summers with him out in the village. And when I got old enough, then I went and I worked in the village and already had good relationships set up because I had been out there with Dad. So even though Dad was no longer working in the village by that point, I knew the supervisor at the time really, really well, and he had already kind of seen, like, sometimes I would volunteer to give tours as a kid. And so it made it really, really easy for me to start in the job out there. Again, I was a very introverted child, so it helped bring out a lot of my personality and kind of made me more comfortable around people and public speaking. And so then I had started working out there, and for a couple of summers, my brother and I worked together. His oldest son would come and spend summers with us when we would be working out there. So I had my nephew, who was just a toddler at the time, out there with us. And at that point, we had 4 generations of Smiths that had gone through that village, kind of one of the lucky legacies that we got to be a part of. Then moving in to working with Cherokee Nation, my mom had worked with the Housing Authority and then had moved into Cherokee Nation. She's worked in art. Dad worked at the Heritage Center up until he retired a few years ago. And when I first moved over into this position away from the Heritage Center, I was able to go and have lunch with Mom almost on a daily basis because her office was just downstairs from where mine was. And so it allowed us to all spend a lot of time together as well. You know, the Cherokee Nation has been just so integral and such a big part of my life. And working with Cherokee Nation, I'm kind of able to give back. And so, again, that's really exciting, and it's been a nice legacy. And a good portion of the family, we all kind of have different things that we work on. Dad's actually pretty good at pottery and tends to make clay beads a lot, which is something that Grandma was really known for. Dad's a great cook, too. And, again, Grandma is a living treasure for traditional foods. Really, really exciting to be a part of that.
And you're in basketry. You're doing an art, too. So you're just keeping on that legacy that your grandmother had.
But then she did a little bit of everything. She learned everything while she worked out of the village. And so all of that was kind of, spread to us. We learned, and we didn't always, not all of us, grandkids especially, learn directly from her. But it was sort of because of what she set up for us that we've been able to do what we have been able to do. So, yes, I now do a lot of Cherokee arts, and it's really kind of thanks to the things that they always made sure that we were involved in.
And we always ask people who are known for one thing, what their secret talent is. And I feel like you were headed down that direction.
Yeah.
If you were not Feather Smith, seed bank extraordinaire, would there be a traditional art or craft that you would take to?
I do love basket weaving. Weaving is something that just really kind of clicks for me. So when it comes to the patterns and the whole thing, it clicks. And so I really, really enjoy weaving and find it really relaxing. But then, like I said, I have also kind of inadvertently ended up making moccasins, and that kind of led to beadwork. And so I do a little bit, I can kind of do leather work on top of kind of being good with the patterns like I was talking about. I also can do finger weaving, and I can do twining and that whole thing. So if I wasn't working full-time and I just had my chance to kind of get to work on hobbies or sit at home, I would be probably doing a little bit of everything. Basket weaving kind of is my first love, but I love all kinds of arts. Anything that allows me to be creative, I tend to enjoy, and so I definitely focus more on Cherokee arts than anything else.
Love that. So looking into the future, how do you envision the seed bank and heirloom garden changing or evolving, and what are your hopes and dreams to see that continue on?
So currently, our main garden is just here at the complex. Again, that 3-acre site. But we are working on putting a site in at our offices, which are not located here at the complex. It's a little bit of a drive. We're kind of located more over in the middle of Tahlequah. We're working on putting a small garden in over there where we can grow more heirloom crops. And so we're sort of looking into where else can we grow that doesn't put too much strain on us, that allows us to grow more heirloom crops in a year, because we can't grow more than one corn in one area. We can't grow more, like the squash and the pumpkins together. So we're always kind of looking at expansion and definitely already putting one spot in. Plus, we are going to have kind of a Cherokee Botanical Garden at the Wilma Mankiller Park when it's done. That'll kind of be a little bit of an extra space where we can sort of do probably tours and education, and we won't have all of the publicity on just the Cherokee Nation Heirloom Garden native plant site, and hopefully then that will allow us to make it more productive. So we're definitely looking at kind of ramping up production. We do want to add a couple of positions. So our ethnobiology department is pretty small. It's basically made up of me and one of our ethnobiology techs at the time right now, which is John Whedon. And we would definitely like to get probably another 1 or 2 techs in and possibly an outreach coordinator in the future, so that way we are more available to do things like tours and presentations. We kind of already started this year, but the Harvesting Our Heritage program allowed us to be able to work with Cherokee groups. Primarily right now it's Cherokee community organizations. And what we're trying to do is have those groups request seeds from us as a group so that they can grow in their community gardens, and we actually send them a larger amount of seeds. And the hope is that each group will kind of be able to start their own seed collection. We definitely, encourage them to keep coming back to us for each year as they need to get seeds. But what we're kind of hoping is that if they start growing these seeds for their gardens, this isn't going to make as big an impact for our groups here in Oklahoma, but especially for groups that are down in for instance, our Austin group. They have very different growing conditions from what we have here on the reservation. As they start growing these seeds in their area, these plants will actually adapt to their weather conditions. And over time, they become more adaptable to the high heat there, to the stranger seasons there, and will grow better in that area if they grow and keep seed and continue on in that hope. So what we really want to see with the Harvesting Our Heritage is that each of these groups is able to get their seed, start their own seed collection, that their seeds will start to adapt for their given region. And then if they can grow and do successful enough, they can actually then start giving their seeds back out to the citizens who live in their area. And that will take some of the strain off of the seed bank, but then also those citizens who live in that area get seeds that have been adapted for their region and are going to grow better for them versus what they're going to get from northeast Oklahoma. Because what we grow here, already the seeds that we're growing have adapted for our region versus where they were growing in the southeast. So over a few generations, they should start doing a little bit better. And we really want to kind of ramp up some of our PR, kind of some of the videos and things that we do to kind of help people on training them on how to grow these plants, what the best way is of growing these plants, and then also maybe working with our community groups where they can talk to each other and to other citizens about this is what it looks like growing these crops in a community setting or at home. So they're going to actually get, a little bit of feedback on this is being grown in my backyard and here's how we make it work. That's really what I want to see with the seed bank is kind of more of our groups sort of talking about how to do this, getting that information out there where it's easier for citizens to get a hold of this information and kind of teaching people really how to garden, how to preserve these seeds, how to keep their seeds, store them for long periods of time so that maybe we'll have a little bit more success going into the future where everybody eventually is able to get the seeds that they want to get.
And I've talked to the Central Texas Cherokee Township CCO group, and it sounds like their garden is just flourishing, and it's amazing that they're able to, start to distribute seeds to their community members, and also their garden is a recruiting tool for their CCO organization because a lot of these people that have maybe not grown up on the reservation and were a little disconnected from their Cherokee side are actually able to hold heirloom Cherokee seeds and, get a little physical connection back to their culture. And they said it's a tremendous impact for their stuff. So.
Oh, yeah. They have a beautiful program. They grow on multiple different sites. They're located right there in the middle of Austin, many of their people, and so it's hard to grow on a large scale, and they have found a way of working with their communities, with schools and things in the area to actually be able to grow these crops, have figured out how to get the crops to grow into their area, have started learning how to store those seeds so that way they're sort of adapted for growing in their area, and then, yes, they're giving them back out into their citizens. And they were actually pretty instrumental in us getting the Harvesting Our Heritage program started. It was something I had always kind of envisioned, but we had never actually been able to kind of get off the ground. And with some encouragement from them, we were able to really get this out and going. And luckily, we've had a lot of support from administration. They've fully been on and definitely wanted to see this success. And so, but with the help from the Central Texas group, it has been really, really instrumental in getting this started, and they are sort of one of the premier groups that we're looking at, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to work with them in the future as we kind of start producing some trainings that will be more available to all Cherokee citizens.
One day there will be Cherokee seeds all over the United States.
Growing Cherokee heirloom crops is a way of having a little piece of the Cherokee Nation. It's almost kind of having a piece of the land with you. These are seeds that have gone from the southeast, from where we initially lived, to the reservation, to us here now, and are now being spread back out really across the country because we have citizens all over, and we have even sent them internationally a couple of times.
Wow.
I know you're very, very busy, and it's especially this time of year, I'm sure, but we appreciate everything you do. We think it's great, great work, and that it's going to have a very long-lasting impact on Cherokee culture and Cherokee Nation as a whole. But yeah, thank you for coming out. Thank you for giving us your time, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, no, thank you for having me.
Res was recorded at the W.W. Keeler Tribal Complex in Tahlequah on the Cherokee Nation Reservation.
This episode was hosted by Kinley Keys and Colton Brandstetter.
Our producer is Brian Dugan.
Our podcast art was designed by Justine Eden.
This episode was edited by Samantha Robinson.
Soundtrack by Chuge Mackey.
If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and leave a review. It'll help more people find us, and please share this episode with your family and friends, especially some of our elders who may not be on social media or listen to podcasts.
And don't forget to follow Cherokee Nation on social media for podcast updates and behind-the-scenes content.
We want to hear from you. Do you know any Cherokee Nation citizens that have an interesting story? Email us at podcast@cherokee.org.
Until next time, stay connected, watch out for each other, and see
Siyo
yo from the res.